All right, good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Monday, October 28th regular meeting of Kimberley City Council, held here on the homelands of the Ktunaxa peoples. Councillor McGuire has not, he's out of the country, and for the last couple of meetings has zoomed in. He's not here yet, but he may join after we start the meeting, so we'll see how that works out. Okay, Maurice, do we have any late items this evening?
There's no late item, Mr. Mayor.
Awesome. Could I have a mover to adopt the agenda? Councillor McBain, thank you very much. And Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the adoption of the minutes of the special meeting of council held on October the 7th. Could I have a mover? Councillor Roberts, thank you. And Councillor Dunneback seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, we have a delegation this evening. Welcome, Danica. How many years is this now that, holy cow, that's awesome.
Sorry.
So Danica's here from WildSafe BC to talk about the year-end reporting and the Bear Working Group update. So the floor is yours, Danica.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me once again.
We should have got a cake or something.
You should have.
It's a big
Decking's
deal.
a big deal, you guys.
It
It's
is.
slacking. No, I just want to mention, we had a really successful year this year, and some highlights before we go into it would be, I reached 1,874 students in educational presentations this year, not including that the Future is Now at McKim. That was incredible. That was a really good event. I could not keep track, so I would say close to 1,000 for that one. So up towards the 3,000 range, actually. And then on top of that, I reached 3,161 community members. That's like including bear spray demos, Camp Odyssey, excluding the schools. 10 display booths at, like, for example, the Rediscover Kimberley event was fantastic at the beginning of the season. And this is a graph of my garbage bin tagging program, and we had 71 bins tagged this year, and a 2% repeat offender, so that was really good. The compost, there was only 2 repeat offenders on the compost, and that actually happened later in August. So the social media and outreach was 7,100, and the black bear, so the wildlife reports would be, as always, not surprising, but the deer top, and then bear, followed by elk, then raccoon, and then cougars. So this year, we focused a lot on the Bear Smart community program. And from behind the scenes, actually, we had pitched a social science survey just in June of 2023 that actually reached the community members and even tourists, just to get a feel of what they think the community is like in terms of wildlife, well, bears, and then the attractant management piece, how they would change their lifestyles to reduce attractants. And that was actually my focus this year, because it didn't close until the spring of this year, but there wasn't very much uptake. So I actually took it upon myself to go out and get 220 more surveys going through door to door for most of the summer into the fall. And it's a really great piece just to get an idea of what Kimberley as a whole feels about this bear working group, the Bear Smart status, and bears in general and their safety. So that was the last piece to the puzzle, and this is some stats from the survey that I spent compiling afterwards. And so this piece is a blurb that the second meeting for the Bear Working Group is supposed to analyze. I've been in the hospital, sorry, for the last 2 weeks. So I know there's people here on the committee that kind of I ghosted. So email will be going out for us to analyze that in the next week. I'm back, good to go. So anyways, this is some of the data. that everyone's seeing for the first time. And this is the last piece of the puzzle of the bear hazard assessment that I promised you guys last year, but basically the draft went for review. This is the last piece of the puzzle that we will decide as a committee to throw into that hazard assessment, go back for review over the winter, and the audit will come in the spring, and you guys should be certified for Bear Smart status if all goes well with the audit. But yeah, basically, if we could actually go back one slide, sorry. Yeah, most people enjoy wildlife in the community. They're just worrying about their safety and the conflicts. And the safety is like their pets, their kids, and actually the elderly. It's not so much focused on themselves, but their family and their community, which is really cool. Most of the conflict is gardens and garbage, and then bird seed. And you can actually see that, oh, and fruit, obviously. And you can see that bird seeds becoming more and more popular over the years. And I had just reached out to the conservation officers, and they said that they destroyed 2 black bears this season, which is lower than usual. Like, great, that's awesome. The bear calls are lower, the conflict's lower. They actually gave a really big shout out to the city of Kimberley, solid waste management department, as well as bylaw. And what we've been doing to communicate, and just whatever we're doing on the ground is actually like clicking. But one of the bears that were destroyed this fall actually was because of bird feeder up in the ski hill. It actually climbed 3 levels. So not so much the bird feeder, but a habituation, right, of a bear. So just we need to keep in mind for next year, which I've listed as a goal, because it's one of the challenges this year that I found. A lot of people aren't willing to take down their bird feeders, which is fine, but it is a major attractant, not for just bears, but like raccoons, which you can see is population soaring in Kimberley. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then this is just a big mess. Sorry, guys. But basically, a lot of people down on the right, the pie graph says like they actually weren't aware that birdseed was an attractant to bears. And so they'll actually take measures to, like, now that they are mindful of that, to keep their bird feeders down and their attractants as well. A lot of people carry their bear spray. This is higher numbers than normal from what I've been hearing in the community, just because of the people who come to my bear spray demos. The word is getting out and they feel a lot more protected. Thanks. Next slide. Yeah, so I already spoke about this, but yeah, Bear Smart working group will be talking about this in the next 2 weeks. And it is believed that mitigations to minimize bear conflict is better approached by reviewing what they already are willing to do and then work from there. And that's where we're going to start next week. Yeah. Next slide. This is part of the data that I included in this bear hazard assessment that I've sent off for review. And that we'll be looking at next week as well. And that's just the numbers over the last few years, from 2014 all the way up to 22. But the most encounters involved in Kimberley are, as you can see on the pie graph up on the top right, is because they're food conditioned. And as well as it's just being reported as a sighting. So that's the big green one there. So that's data that's been included. You can see that 2016 was a really big year, 2019 was a big year, and then 2023 and 2024 data's not up there because of the WARB website, as well with the conservation wraps line. It's just not clicking, and they're working on something, so we can't actually like graph it all together. Next slide, please. The next one is just a little bit of a risk assessment that I did in the areas around Kimberley. And then on the right, it's just a little bit of management strategies that we've done throughout this bear working committee. So lots to add, but a lot of the priority spots that we'll be looking at are places like downtown, town site, the ski hill are big ones, and the lower to moderate areas are Selkirk Hill. Church Ave actually came up on a low level this year because they've actually been managing their attractants quite well. And other than that, next slide, please.
Yep.
That's pretty
Danica?
much it. Oh,
Yeah, sorry,
Councilor
just
McBain
if
has
we
a
can
question.
back up, I just wanted, just curious, Danica, what criteria you use to categorize, you know, the low, moderate, high? Is it just encounters? Is it,
yeah, so it's basically just a clicker. You go into every different neighborhood and I just click how many attractants that I can see available.
okay,
We are going to be putting this data on a map, but there's been a lot of turnover in the last year in the provincial side of things, so it's slow moving. They have all the data, but it's basically you go into every community and you like, so if you were downtown, you say, okay, here's a dumpster, here's the
Okay.
compost, this is a grease bin, right? So downtown would be marked high,
So
'cause there's quite a bit of restaurants.
yeah, so it's not just based on encounters, it's based on what you see, apple trees and.
Yeah, it's
garbage.
actually
Okay.
not based on encounters.
Okay,
It's definitely the attractive management part of
Okay.
things.
that helps, thank you.
No problem. Sorry, I should have clarified that. Great question. Next slide. Yeah, and the goals from now until 2025, we're just going to analyze that social science survey, additional science blurb to the bear hazard assessment. Then we're developing a human to bear conflict management plan, which is driven by that hazard assessment. The data is going to be mapped and added and final review. And then, yeah, start that conversation in June for the Bear Smart audit.
Awesome, thanks.
No problem. Any questions?
I noticed you mentioned that raccoons are on the rise in Kimberley, and I actually have seen a couple in the last little while, which I was very surprised. But also, to my surprise, in town site is a huge population of fox.
That's right. And it used to be a lot of coyotes. And it's funny that you bring that up because I've talked about this for about 10 years. And what I was hearing was no, foxes don't live where coyotes live. Foxes and wolves share the same territory. And I was like, that's not true because I live in town site and there's a coyote in my backyard and I've seen a fox. So Kimberley is a little bit of a wild card. But they are becoming more popular, and that's one reason why pet food is on the list of attractants that we do go door to door and talk about, because that's raccoons and foxes, even coyotes and bear, right? That's a big one. Thanks.
Thanks, Danica. Great presentation
Thanks.
and great information. And it's great to hear that, you know, the conflict is on the decline. And I'm hearing from lots of people who are looking for ideas to help secure organics. And I think there are bins available for purchase, correct? Is that something that we have on our city website, or is there?
For composting, I'm actually not too sure.
Okay,
I'm like looking right at them.
okay.
Thank you. Great question. Yes, we do offer bear bins for residents to purchase that can be used for both organics or garbage.
Yep.
Great, thanks. And how much are they? Or that's okay.
They're around $120.
Okay,
-ish, I
great.
think.
And people could find that information on our website, or how would they?
Yeah, it should be on the website. If not, you can call operations and they can help you.
Okay.
And when I
Yeah,
go
okay.
door to door for garbage, I do mention, because I know that it is for garbage. And thank you for bringing up compost, because I did reach out to the conservation officers about this one, because I have been going on a little bit of a campaign blitz and more of like a feedback review just for my own knowledge. And yeah, there is a lot of complications when it comes to storage, you know that. However, when I asked the conservation officers, what information are you giving them at the moment so that I can give them as well, so we're consistent, is, you know, if you're new to composting, maybe take a step back and stop composting while that bear is in your area. And just put it into the solid waste bin. And then once that bear is out and you become more familiar over the, like this summer or like next year, and you feel more confident, then start to use your compost bin. And I'm not sure how the city feels about that, but that's just me relaying back message to you.
Go ahead.
I'm going to jump in there and just say, I think we'd really like to see people like really keep high adoption of the organics program.
Yeah.
And so, thought that, like, I know for a lot of people, it's a real struggle to store safely. And the whole idea of helping people to build sheds or having neighborhood approaches where, if there's some way that like extra room in my garage, but that way of just helping people out who may not have room for a shed, or if they need a hand building a shed. I guess just something that I keep in the back of my mind if there was any kind of community organization or people, neighbors helping neighbors to be able to store organics safely.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Neighbors helping neighbors is a really good idea. We will talk about that in 2 weeks, but we're still working from your last idea from the Bear Working Group about a cost share program for storage. It's just working out with the large carnivore biologists how that would work in terms of funding and from where and how that would be distributed. And then Wild Safe BC at the provincial level is looking into helping as well. Yeah.
Further, council? I have just one comment, Danica, and that is that, from the presentations that you give, I think it's important for us to think about attractants as being a whole lot more than just garbage. I think we kind of default to garbage, but as you've indicated, there are lots of others, including fruit trees.
Yeah.
The importance of getting the fruit off the trees, we just need to think a little more broadly about attractants. Last comment to Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a flashback comment. There was a period of time here, probably about the 10, 12-year ago mark, Danica, where a whole bunch of new people had moved to the community and they were terrified of the bears. And there was no room for the bears in their society and they wanted them gone. And I believe there was one season where they actually took out 11 bears. And that was just, I mean, I grew up here, there's bears here all the time and they were just nice little creatures that just doing life, And so I was pleased to see on the survey that people are stating that they like having the bears around. And that's a good move because they're not after us. They're just trying to get by, and we just need to find a way for that to happen.
Yeah, and I think it's super beneficial as a community, as the city of Kimberley. You should be proud because from that survey, it shows that not only does the community feel safe, it actually makes Kimberley a more attractive place to visit because there is wildlife here, but you care about it and you manage your attractants in a certain way that, you could live in coexistence with them. So.
All right, thanks, Danica. Appreciate you coming in. We'll look forward to report number 11 next year. Thank you.
As always. Thanks, everyone. Oh, and a big shout out to all my sponsors. Thanks, guys. And volunteers.
All right, next up, we have the development variance permit for 451 Archibald. And the motion on the floor is that council approve the development variance permit. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Roberts, seconds. Discussion. Troy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly here, this was discussed at the last meeting and following council's direction to provide notice that was sent out shortly after the meeting, and no submissions have been received, no concerns or anything. So we're recommending to move forward with the variance as requested.
All right, thanks, Troy. Council, comments or questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Next up is the grant application approval for Marsden Street Active Transportation Project. And the motion on the floor is, sorry, jumped ahead of myself. We'll come back to Marsden Street. First up is the designation of fire inspectors and fire investigators as required by the Fire Safety Act. Sorry, Will. We'll deal with that right now. The motion on the floor is that council direct staff to prepare an amendment to the fire service bylaw for council's consideration at a future meeting to designate the fire chief, assistant fire chief, captain, lieutenant, and firefighter as fire inspectors, and the fire chief, assistant fire chief, captain, and lieutenant as fire investigators as detailed in the chief's staff report. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Fox, seconds. Chief, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So on August 1st, 2024, the Fire Safety Act was brought into force, replacing the Fire Services Act. And in accordance with Section 8 and 23 of the Fire Safety Act, the local authority must designate in writing a person or class of persons as fire inspector and fire investigator. So to comply with the act, we're looking to prepare an amendment to the fire service bylaw in the future.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Excellent. Thanks, Chief. Questions, comments, council? Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Just to be clear, when we actually put 8.1 in place, that's the actual statement that's going to be in the bylaw, or are the names of those designated going to be in the bylaw?
I think it's the designations, correct, Chief?
Yeah. So we're going to look at the designation to follow suit with the Fire Safety Act, and then put the actual positions designated under that title.
So the position's not the person.
Yeah, it's going to capture future if there's any movement within the fire hall.
Yeah, that's fine. So if there's people changing, we're not doing this all the time. That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Roberts. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up is Marsden Street Active Transportation Project Grant Application. I think there are a number of pieces to this one, so bear with me while I go through this. The motion on the floor, pardon me, is that council directs staff to prepare an amendment to the 24-28 5-year financial plan bylaw to make the following changes. And these changes would be for council consideration at a future meeting. First of all, delete the $46,500 design budget and the $455,960 construction budget for the project as currently budgeted for completion in 26 and 27, and add 2025 a capital expenditure of $362,083 to undertake the Marsden Street Active Transportation Project as detailed in the report. Identifying funding sources being $253,458 or 70% of the project from grant revenue and $108,625 or 30% from general operating revenue. And finally, that council directs staff to apply the active transport. Two resolutions? Okay, got it. Thanks, Maurice. And right there. Mover, please. Thanks, Councillor McBain, and Councillor Fox seconds. All right, Shane.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The floor is yours.
Council. So the purpose of this report is to get council's authorization to apply for granting for the Marsden Street Active Transportation Project and to move the project to 2025. This grant would cover 70% of the project, so roughly $253,000 of the $362,000 budget. So the goal of active transportation projects is to promote safe travel for all users. As the networks become more interconnected, the more use the entire network will see. The city completed the active transportation network plan several years back, which identified and prioritized active transportation projects. The city is utilizing this plan to identify key projects to propose for grant funding and combining them with other capital projects where applicable. The city has successfully obtained grants from the active transportation projects annually since 2022, with these projects completing key links in our network. Our network now connects from Marysville School to Lindsay Park Elementary and Townsite and up to the ski hill. So the city is now focusing the active transportation projects to connect localized subdivisions to the active transportation network. This project was previously approved in the 2024 to 2028 5-year capital plan and was originally scoped as the Marsden Street sidewalk from the highway to Rotary and the Rotary Street sidewalk from the skate park to the sidewalk north of the skate park. But due to construction cost increases, staff are recommending that the scope of the project be reduced for 2025 to just the Marsden Street scope of work, which will keep the project within the original budget. So the scope of the project will include new curb, gutter, and sidewalk, storm upgrades as required for the drainage changes, which includes a couple catch basins, as well as improvements to the intersection alignment of Marsden Street and Archibald. And if the grant is received, construction is anticipated to be completed through the summer of 2025. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shane. Councillor McBain.
Thanks, Shane. What, do you have a hunch about the likelihood of success of the application, for this project?
Yeah, if I was looking at our past success, I think we're doing pretty well. We work with these agencies throughout the year through the construction of the previous projects. We have good relationships with them, and we work with the local organizations. So the Ministry of Transportation also reviews these. So I do think we have a good chance of getting this.
And if we don't?
If we don't, we will, this project is grant dependent, so we won't be moving forward with the project at this time, but we would continue to look at granting opportunities for this project.
All right. Thanks, Shane. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having just living just nearby where the new skate park is and the new bump ride or whatever they call it, it's just amazing the number of little people that are down there with no sidewalk, and they're riding their bikes, they're dropping down, they're walking across, they're not paying any attention to where they're going at all. And the idea of having a pathway there is, it's an ideal time to make this happen.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cairns.
Thanks. So I'm just wondering, with the amendment and the scope of the project that wouldn't be addressed under this amendment, would that would stay on our project plan, 5-year project plan for completion at a future date? Or what would happen to the remainder?
Drive portion of the
The
project.
Rotary Drive, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my understanding is that we would keep that project on for a future active transportation project. So that would be, it would be the next connection in that corridor.
Further, council? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, the last piece to this one, now that we've taken care of the financial plan, is to direct staff to apply to the Active Transportation Network Grant Program for a $253,458 grant to fund 70% of the project, with, as was mentioned earlier, the remaining 30% coming from general operating reserve. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Awesome. Thanks for the work on that, Shane. And Troy. Okay, next up we have the St. Mary's Avenue Reconstruction Project and the REDUP grant application. And the motion on the floor is the council directs staff to prepare an amendment to year 2 of the 24-28 5-year financial plan for consideration at a future meeting to increase the total budget of this project by $407,177 from the previously approved amount of $1,636,558 to account for inflationary adjustments and the revised budget being funded as follows. General operating capital reserve, $588,000. Sewer operating capital reserve, $355,000. Water operating capital reserve, $406,000. Infrastructure renewal reserve, $225,000. And flat tax reserve, $468,000. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor McBain, and Councillor Fox seconds. All right. You going to speak to this one as well, Shane?
Yes. Yeah.
Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So the purpose of this report is to get Council's authorization to first, to increase the budget of the 2025 St. Mary's Avenue Reconstruction Project from $1.636 million to $2.043 million. And secondly, to get the authorization to apply for up to $1 million in grant funding through the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program funding stream, so REDIP. So the City of Kimberley prioritizes capital projects based off of the actual performance of the infrastructure in the field, as well as the IICP, so the Integrated Infrastructure Capital Plan. This plan combines the master plans for the city's water, sewer, storm, and road infrastructure, and prioritizes projects where all utilities require replacing and or upgrading in a corridor. So this project is currently in the city's 2024 to 2028 5-year capital plan, and it's identified in the city's 2020 IICP as Project 26, with a recommendation to be completed within 5 years following the IICP. The scope of the project includes road reconstruction on St. Mary's Avenue from Wallinger to Highway 95A, including replacement of sidewalk, improvement of traffic flows through the corridor, and safer loading zones around the highway. It also includes the replacement of the retaining wall separating St. Mary's Road from Spokane Street, and replacing the clay sanitary sewer and the concrete storm mains with new PVC mains. It also includes upsizing the water main to 300 millimeter and looping it through this corridor. Now, the upsizing of the water main was a scope increase to the project, but it was determined important as we're beginning to plan for the replacement of the 500 millimeter water main replacement through the highway corridor adjacent to this project. That project's scheduled for later in the 5-year plan, and upsizing will improve fire flows in this area and provide more water rerouting options during the future project. So the current cost estimate was provided by the engineer of record and reflects the most up-to-date construction estimates in the region. In general, we are continuing to see a higher trend in construction inflation than compared to the consumer price index. For example, our lowest bids for general utility construction are roughly 10% higher than estimated in 2023, with the average bid being several percent higher than that. This inflation is impacting the majority of our capital projects, and a more detailed look at this will be provided in an asset management presentation that will complement the 2025 to 2029 5-year capital plan later this year. So speaking to the grant, the city has been successful with a REDIP application in the past. The funding stream supports rural economic development, and staff feel it fits well with the project as it supports key infrastructure upgrades and safe travel through the downtown corridor. The funding is up to $1 million of the total costs of the project, and it is important to note that the project is not grant dependent and will proceed regardless of grant outcomes. If grant funding is received, pre-allocated funding for the project will be returned to reserves. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shane. Councillor McBain.
Thanks, Shane. So we took a look at the downtown revitalization. St. Mary's was part of that project. I assume alignment, I'm trying to think of the other things so essentially this will follow what was in that plan that we had with that downtown core plan.
Yeah.
For St. Mary's.
That is correct, but
Okay.
like the downtown revitalization plan will align with this.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I didn't see a sketch in there, but I just wanted to make sure that we were following that plan with the St. Mary's portion. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Fox.
Sorry, what is the plan? Because there is no sketch. What exactly happens to, I might care a little. What exactly happens to the street?
Sure. So the street itself will generally look fairly similar. The streetscaping would align with the downtown revitalization plan. We're looking at creating a one-way street out of the coming around St. Mary's Avenue as it splits, where you go up to where it splits and you can go up the hill or around to where the retaining wall is. That exit will be a one-way, and then we will be adjusting the corridor around the highway to support safer loading and unloading zones for the businesses in that area.
Can I ask
Shane.
another?
Further?
Yeah. Does Spokane Street then stay two-way, or does that go one-way as well?
I believe at this point it would stay two-way on Spokane Street as it comes into Wallinger.
Is that negotiable?
I mean,
I can give you lots of reasons why, but I'm just wondering if that's negotiable, and I can approach that at a different time if it's more appropriate. But yeah, my building's right at the bottom of the hill there, and we've been hit a whole bunch of times, including last year by the snowplow, because it gets really, really icy. So I'm wondering if there's not a plan to turn that into a one-way going up, if there's a plan for safety purposes to put in like a guardrail or something.
So Councillor Fox, if I
Yeah.
could suggest, a review of that plan as it exists right now.
Yeah.
That probably will answer a number of your questions. And
Okay.
if there are any left, you should take that up with staff directly.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you. Thank you, Shane. Further, council? All right, I'll call the question on the first part. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, the second part is that council directs staff to submit an application to the Rural Economic Diversification Infrastructure Program requesting the maximum available grant of $1 million to fund a portion of this project. And further, that if the grant application is successful, staff be directed to prepare an amendment to the 5-year financial plan to revise the funding to show the grant revenue as part of that funding. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, next up we have the financial update report for 3 quarters of this year to September the 30th. And the motion on the floor is that council receive for information the financial update report as attached to the Chief Financial Officer's report in the agenda. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor Fox seconds. Discussion. You will zing right to questions. Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
It was pretty awesome. There's just an anomaly there that throughout the program, I just sort of needed it. It says that we're something short in the spending for the fire department, and then along the way that the fire department seems to go. Something different there than normal?
This is fairly typical of this report, and it has to do with the forest management that we budget to receive the grants every year, and in large part due to the timing of the grants or whether or not the projects proceed due to the weather conditions. It's very rare that that's going to be on budget. I don't know, Chief Booth, if you have anything to add to that.
Well, that explains. That explains it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor. Further, Council? So yeah, most of the kind of on these cumulative year to date, all things being equal, it means we should be for most things anywhere around 75% of kind of budget spend, plus or minus a few percentage points. But we have some areas that are, especially the capital projects, that can vary greatly. I wonder if you can make a comment, Jim, just about carryovers and kind of at what point decisions are made to do carryover, which would obviously impact the reporting for this year.
Yeah, as far as the capital and non-capital projects that kind of are the last couple of sections of this report, there are notes for a number of those projects that indicate a number of them are deferred from 2024 to 2025 for a variety of reasons. Typically, those decisions will be made, partway through the year. Certainly by now, we would know whether or not a project was going to proceed. On the operating side of things, depending on the department or the facility you're looking at, as an example, the arenas, when the ice is in, you're going to see expenses flowing out, revenues flowing into that facility. And obviously when it's down, you're not going to see any activity there. So there's a bit of disparity there as well as we go through the year. You're going to see some differences there.
Excellent. Thanks, Jim. Councillor McGuire has joined us. Thanks, Woody. Your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just one comment on this. I appreciated it. It gave a good snapshot of where we're at. And one comment is that I have seen a similar report have a projected for the year end, just to give us an idea of where we're going to come in based on whether grants have been approved or projects have already been planned to be shifted. And that just gives us an idea, kind of looking to the year end.
Thanks, Councillor McGuire. Appreciate the comment. Further, Council? All right, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. All right, next up is the procurement report for the first 3 quarters to September 30th, 2024. And the motion on the floor is that council receive for information the report. Mover, Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Karen seconds. Comments or questions, Councillor? Thanks for the report, Jim. This, in addition to the one we've just seen, provides us with, you have a question?
I was just saying, Krista.
Chief Financial Officer, all right.
Yeah. I understand how, I mean, I did that for a
Apologies,
number of
Krista.
years, so.
Apologies to that. Yeah, it's automatic. Did you have any comments you want to make, first of all, on the procurement report itself?
No, just that it's for the period of July 1st to September 30th, and it's quite a shorter list compared to the last period. So if you have any questions, feel free.
Yeah. These are excellent reports. This is the first year, actually, I think. Second year we've been getting these now. And they are important reports. So thank you for all the great work on that. Council. Call the question. All those in favor of receipt. Motion is carried. Thanks, Krista. Next up, we have animal control and bylaw enforcement. The 3rd quarter report. Move receipt. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Karen seconds. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So I missed out on presenting the last couple of these. So I'm here to grace you with my presence this time. As you can see, if we just jump straight down here, we've got a total of 221 calls for the period from the 1st of July to the 30th of September. Fairly standard call distribution across that period. There's quite a jump in our intake of other over the last 3 years. So versus 2022, 2023, we've gone from 27 calls or other to 50. But other generally just encompasses things like bylaw inquiries. So we've got a lot of people now asking before they do, which is great because that saves them getting any infringements. And so that just is captured in that period, like in that heading rather than under a specific bylaw because there are no infractions occurring. It's just providing information as a call for service. Streets and traffic infractions across the 3 years are all fairly consistent. We're in around that 80 mark. But of note, we've got significantly less complaints related to water shortage. So people are much better receiving messaging about saving water and following the bylaw in terms of the usage of water. We did start this year out in our phase 2 of water restrictions as opposed to phase 1, just due to keeping up with the provincial mandates of saving with water. And people were very quick to adjust to that. If we go down into the ticketing section there, streets and traffic bylaw is our main driver of ticketing. Again, there are still significant amounts of violations observed in regards to that. They are getting better, but it's a slow process. 789 dog licenses purchased to date in 2024 compared to 873 total licenses purchased in 23. I don't believe we have less dogs. It's just that there's only one of me, and so I can only prioritize one thing at a time. So we'll come back around to that one and the numbers will go up again. We did have one dog that was considered to be a vicious dog by the city. It does not reside in the city as a result of an animal attack that occurred in the city in which a person was injured. So that dog was considered to be vicious by the city of Kimberley, and that information has been provided to the jurisdiction in which that dog resides to do with what they will. And there was also one investigation which was undertaken in conjunction with the Conservation Officer Service, which was an attack on a deer which resulted in a fatality. We have municipal tickets issued. We issued 46 municipal tickets for a total of $10,000 in fines issued this quarter. 16 tickets were issued in a joint effort with the building department for the as a result of a resolution from council or with the support of council for ongoing violations of the Kimberley building bylaw, and that totaled $8,000 worth of fines. So that made up the majority of it. That's something that I am hoping that we can continue the trend of. This is setting the precedent, and we want the developers to know that we are serious about enforcing our municipal bylaws. And if you're going to build in Kimberley, you need to be following those regulations. 26 tickets for a streets and traffic bylaw or $1,675 worth of fines, and 4 tickets for animal control bylaw violations, $325 worth of fines.
Thank you, Sean. Councillor McBain.
No question, Sean. Just wanted to say that I know your job is not easy, and I've watched you do your job, and you do I think a really good balance of enforcing what we are trying to enforce, but at the same time, you know, being as reasonable as possible. Yours is not an easy job. I wouldn't want it. I'll put it right out there. But I really do appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor McBain. Councillor Fox, go ahead.
I just have this might be a dumb question. Do we decide when we're on water restrictions, or does the province decide when we're on water restrictions? Just because you said something about provincial mandate.
It's kind of a joint effort. So the province makes recommendations.
Okay.
We also have our own water shortage bylaw, and that automatically takes effect on the 1st of June and ends on the 30th of September per year. So that was just built into the bylaw, but it starts on stage 1. So if we want to make alterations to that to keep in line with other restrictions in the area, we do have to make announcements of that earlier. So,
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know. Sorry.
no worries.
Thank you, Sean. So I have a question with regard to the good neighbor bylaw and short-term rental. I think most people had equated good neighbor with short-term rental, but in fact, short-term rental we've had very few complaints or issues, but I see quite a high number in the good neighbor. What exactly are those? There's 27.
So good neighbor encompasses noise complaints, idling complaints, unsightly premises. It's actually fairly broad in its scope. So there's a lot of issues that fall under the good neighbor category. So there's also camping in parks. A lot of our park infractions are actually under the good neighbor bylaw now.
Okay.
Just because that tidied it up, because it's a lot of behavior in public kind of infractions. And so just sitting it all under that one heading captures a lot of them.
All right, excellent. Thanks. Thanks for that. Okay, council, call the question. All those in favor of receipt? Any opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have receipt of the administration update from our Chief Admin Officer. A mover, please. Councillor Dunneback moves. Councillor Karen seconds. Comments? You want to make an opening comment before we call on council?
Yeah, I can.
There's a lot of information in here.
There's about 18 pages of information and photos. So again, I really encourage public to have a look at this. Maybe I'll just scroll through. Obviously, won't go through everything, but just hit on some of the highlights.
Excellent.
There's been some fairly high profile capital projects. The first one, Knighton Road realignment, that also included an active transportation network link from Knighton Road down to rails to trails. Swan Ave retaining wall and pathway repairs. That's pretty much complete. There's some existing repairs to the steel retaining wall that are planned for completion in late October, early November. Kaminko Gardens is a project that we get asked about from time to time. There was some work done on the washroom renovations and the building facade upgrades to the tea house up there. The landscaping portion of that project, the design and tender documents are complete. Project is to be issued for tender in later on this month, early November, and construction is planned for spring, summer 2025. So that project was initially intended to be completed this year, hence the reduced maintenance regime at the facility, but it is planned to be completed next year. The next project, Center 64 Stage and Landscaping Council, was presented with a project or a staff report at a recent meeting where they authorized confirming additional funding to complete that project. And once the funding is complete, to award that project for start of work this year, completing next year. Roads crews right now, given the time of year, they're busy preparing for the upcoming winter season. Training ongoing for plow routes, graders. The utility side of things, there's a water supply study that's in the non-capital projects. Phase 1 has been awarded to a local consulting firm to review the hydrometrics of Mark Creek watershed and reservoir. So this phase will analyze the anticipated supply capacity of Mark Creek into the future, taking into account the effects of climate change and projected future demands. There's also a phase 2 of that project that will take place in 2025, which will update the city's water distribution system model and analyze future demand scenarios. Parks and facilities side of things, we've been undertaking a number of building condition assessments over the last number of years. Recently had those completed on the library / museum, Centennial Hall, and the conference center. There's an ICE facilities strategy that's budgeted to be completed. An RFP has been completed on that, and that will be issued shortly. The RFP will be issued in 2024. Goal of having that project complete by mid-2025. The Aquatic Center continues to struggle a bit to recruit full-time, part-time lifeguards. Right now, we only have 2 part-time lifeguards. The remainder are casual employees, which makes it really difficult to staff that pool and keep a regular schedule. Planning department, the transit side of things, there was a MOU to expand Route 22, the KC commuter service that was approved by BC Transit on September 9th. Drive-through and gas station policy regulations and considerations, those are in the works in the planning department. Building permits approved by the department. There were 11 new permits in the third quarter of 2024, 9 for new dwellings, 9 single unit, 2 accessory dwelling units. Year to date, 63 new dwelling units have been approved. On the communication side of things, this report is relatively new. The first time it was presented to council was in April of this year, with the intention of just really providing information to council and the public that wouldn't typically make its way onto an agenda. We've got another new initiative on the communications front. We've distributed the regular e-update newsletter for quite a while now, information of topics in the public interest, but beginning in August, Ms. Walsh in the communications department began distributing council meeting highlights newsletter. So following each regular meeting of council, usually comes out the next day or the day after. Subscribers receive emails with high level information about the topics discussed and direction provided by council at the meeting. So that's just part of the ongoing effort to get more information out there to the public. The fire department, third quarter 2024, the department responded to 56 calls of varying nature. Total calls for 2024 to the end of the third quarter is 136. The department responded to 2 structure fires in 2024. The total estimated value of all properties at risk using the calculations, property and contents as provided by the officer of the fire commissioner, estimated at just about $5.7 million. And the fuels management program completed a 10-hectare prescribed burn at the Loris Creek area. Some members of the public and a bunch of lucky school kids got to learn a little bit about that recently. Yeah, there was the fire hall open house was held in the third quarter. I think it was a huge success by all accounts. The HR side of things, we've realized some premium savings as a result of a return to work initiative or procedures changing in the department. And we're continuing to work on the core certification through WorkSafe BC as well. Corporate services, the city received 3 compliance submissions to an RFP for consultant services to develop an age-friendly accessibility plan for the city. In addition to the staff review of the proposals, the submissions will be shared to the Accessibility Advisory Committee at the next regular meeting for feedback, and staff expect to award the contract early November. That's a snapshot of the information included.
That was a short list.
There's a bunch more in here. So yeah, please check it out.
A lot of great work going on, Jim. Thanks for the summary on that. Yeah. Councillor McBain, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a question. It's probably best for Nick. The Peak to Platzel staircase, I recognize it's been closed for a while and we're thinking about doing an assessment. Is there a do nothing / removal option on the table for assessment? And and the reason I ask this is just thinking, you know, with having to do the geotech assessment and then mitigation, it seems like it's be a pretty significant project, and it doesn't provide accessibility that the new walkway that eventually meets up with it does. Just wondered if that's been an option or is going to be considered when we get to that point.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McBain. Great question. And the short answer is yes, that's going to be part of our evaluation. So as you'll see in the future capital planning that's coming up, we'll have a budget request in there to do a feasibility repair study to see what it's going to take to repair these, and that'll produce kind of a rough order of magnitude costing on that, and then we can take that and make a best decision of, okay, is it worth investing X amount of dollars into keeping these stairs going, or is the long-term plan to stick with the pathway and move away? As you know, there's also the retaining wall situation on the Peaks of Platzel Trail that we are also looking into resolve for that. So we're actually now going to try and combine both of those geotechnical studies together to look at this as kind of a holistic view of that whole pathway network there, and see what the best options are. Because yes, you are correct. There's going to be significant dollars required to repair and remediate both of these options.
Further?
Yeah, and just further, I mean, the reason I bring it up is, you know, we have been, I realize, you know, around council, it's very difficult to, you know, cut services. And we've talked about this a couple of weeks ago where, you know, Jim was asked managers to look for opportunities. And, you know, I don't think I would have ever even considered this but with how robust that we've created the trail system that is much more accessible across the board. It just kind of seemed like something that would kind of make sense along that lines. But you answered the question perfectly. As long as it's under consideration and in that regard, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
How old are those staircases, Nick? You know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I believe it was the 70s or something in there, but okay.
And there's the one downtown.
We have 3 sets of steel stairs. Yeah, big stairs down. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Further questions, Council? Go ahead, Councillor Cairns.
I just want to say thank you so much for the awesome report. It's really great to have all this information. And I know when it was done last spring that the public that I circulated it to were really appreciative as well. And I just wondered, is it on the city website so that a link can be shared, or what's the best way to share it?
Yeah, they are on the city website. The 2 previous, this one will be added to it. They're all I think if you search admin update, I'm not sure the path, but yeah, they're all available in one spot. And I really appreciate the comments that we hope to continue to improve this as we move along, but the managers are doing a really good job of kind of picking the things that are important to get out there and including as much information as they can. Thanks.
All right. Call the question. All those in favor of receipt? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the check run in the order of $545,576 to be approved as paid. Mover, please. Councillor Fox moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. Any comments, councillors? Any non-routines? Everything pretty routine? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, we only have one item under correspondence this evening, and it is a letter from Andrew Wilson from the Kimberley Chamber of Commerce. And there is a request for a letter of support for a grant application going into the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program. First of all, move receipt. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Fox seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Do we have another motion coming out of this for a letter of support for the chamber? Okay, I don't think we can capture that as a sure, but
I noticed folks were here today, so I was waiting to see if there was going to be discussion first.
Does council have any discussion? Mover.
I'm happy to move.
All right, Councillor McBain moves. Thank you very much. Councillor Roberts seconds. Discussion. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Staff will prepare the letter of support. Is there a deadline for this, Andrew? Right. Okay, so we're all right. Staff will have that under advisement. All those in favor? Did we do that? Thank you. I shouldn't have called the question before we had the conversation around it. Sorry about that. Okay, that's it. We do have a couple of items on in camera this evening that we need to roll into. So with that, could I have a mover to go in camera? Thanks, Councillor Fox and Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, 2 minutes. Councillor McGuire, will he have a separate dial in? Okay, see you shortly, Woody.